Welcome, travelers from beyond the veil. You've been whisked away from your cozy modern lives and dropped smack dab into 1863, right in the thick of the American Civil War. Picture this: a moonlit night, the air heavy with mist and the lingering cries of a battle long past. The ground beneath your feet is sacred, soaked with the blood of heroes and the sorrow of the fallen. And who's this rattling into view? Why, it's me. General Bones, your skeletal guide through this haunted slice of history. Don't mind the lack of flesh. It's been a while since I've had any, but it just means I can strip this tale down to its bare bones. Pun intended, of course. I'm your humble host. Well, as humble as a skeleton can be after a century or two underground. We're here to relive the Battle of Chickamauga, a story dripping with bravery, blood, and a few boneheaded decisions. Don't worry, I'll keep it lively. Being dead's no excuse for a dull yarn. Let's set the stage, folks. It's 1863. And the Civil War's been raging for 2 brutal years. The Union's got the numbers factories churning out guns, railroads humming with supplies. But we Confederates, we've got grit, guts, and a love for our homeland deeper than a Georgia peach pit. Now, zoom in on Chattanooga, Tennessee, a prize worth scrapping over. It's a railroad hub, the beating heart of supply lines. Control it, and you control the war's lifeline. Union General William Rosecrans, a sharp-minded fellow with a strategist's gleam in his eye, has been hounding us south, pushing Confederate forces out of Tennessee and into the wilds of Georgia. But our General Braxton Bragg, he's prickly as a porcupine in a briar patch and twice as stubborn. He's not about to let Rosecrans waltz off with the prize. So Bragg digs in near Chickamauga Creek, a name that sends shivers down even my non-existent spine. It's Cherokee for River of Death, and trust me, it earned that title. The stage is set, the players are ready, and things are about to get messier than a hog pen in a rainstorm. Early September 1863, and the air's turning crisp as autumn creeps in. Rosecrans, thinking he's got us on the ropes, chases us into northwestern Georgia. But Bragg's no fool. He's a cagey old fox, and he's got a trap brewing. He plants his army along Chickamauga Creek, waiting for the Yankees to stumble into his jaws. Let me paint you a picture of this place. The woods, thicker than a politician's promises. You could barely see your own nose, let alone the enemy 10 feet away. Briars snagged at uniforms, vines tripped up boots, and the underbrush was a tangle of nature's own defenses. The terrain was a nightmare. Try marching a regiment through that without losing half your men to thorns. And the creek itself, a muddy, twisting beast that could swallow a cannon whole. It wasn't just a battlefield. It was a gauntlet. The soldiers, Union blue and Confederate gray, were bone-tired from months of marching, fighting, and living off hardtack and hope. But you could see it in their eyes, a fire, a spark of determination. I saw one lad, barely 17, carving his initials into a tree trunk, like he wanted the world to know he was here. Another whispered a prayer under his breath, clutching a locket with a lock of hair inside. They knew what was coming. September 18th was nigh, and the river of death was itching for a fight. September 18th, 1863, kicks off with a bang, or rather, a few scattered pops. The first shots crackle at Reed's Bridge as Union cavalry tangle with our Confederate pickets. It's a deadly game of tag, both sides feeling each other out, probing for weaknesses. The fighting spills over to Alexander's Bridge, where the woods turn into a blind man's maze. I saw one poor soul, a private from Alabama, so lost in the thicket he nabbed his own sergeant by mistake. General Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now, there's a name to rattle your bones. His boys screened our lines, giving us time to dig in deeper. By dusk, the skirmishes tapered off, but the air buzzed like a beehive ready to burst. The men sharpened bayonets, checked rifles, and swapped stories. Some about home, some about the fellas they'd lost. September 19th, 1863. Mark that date, folks, because all hell broke loose. The battle roared to life, and Vineyard Field turned into a slaughterhouse. Union boys under General Jefferson C. Davis, no kin to our Jefferson, stood their ground against our relentless waves. I saw a lieutenant from Ohio, barely a whisker on his chin, holding his post as bullets whizzed past. There was this Union fella, leg torn up by shrapnel, who still hauled a wounded Reb to cover. The fighting raged across the woods all day, muskets barking, cannons thundering. War leaves ghosts, and Chickamauga's lousy with them. I ought to know. I'm one. September 20th, 1863. The day the tide turned red. Rosecrans, bless his heart, botched an order worse than a cook burning cornbread, left a gap in his line wide as a barn door, and who should spot it but General James Longstreet? Sharp as a razor and tough as nails, he threw his men into that breach like a sledgehammer. The Union boys scattered. Rabbits before a fox, panic tearing through their ranks. But hold your horses, 'cause here comes General George Thomas. He plants his flag at Snodgrass Hill and says, "Not today." Outnumbered, outgunned, he's a rock in a storm. His men held that hill against charge after charge, buying time for the Union to retreat. They dubbed him the Rock of Chickamauga, and he earned every letter of it. I can still see him, cool as a cucumber, barking orders while cannonballs flew. Leadership like that, it's what turns a rout into a legend. Day 3 was ours, but Thomas made sure we paid for it in blood. Chickamauga was ours, folks. A Confederate win etched in fire and steel. But the cost? Over 34,000 casualties. Second only to Gettysburg. That's 34,000 stories cut short. 34,000 families left waiting. The fields were a graveyard, the woods a mausoleum. The Union hightailed it to Chattanooga, licking their wounds, while Bragg, well, he didn't chase them hard enough. Victory tasted bittersweet like coffee without a lick of sugar. This battle echoed beyond the creek. For us rebels, a shot of hope, proof we could still slug it out. For the Union, a bitter lesson they'd turn into resolve. The war dragged on, but Chickamauga shaped it. Taught both sides what grit and folly could do. Standing here, I think of those boys. Union and Confederate, pouring their all into this ground. They believed in something bigger than themselves, and that's worth remembering. War's a beast, but it forges heroes out of ordinary folks. That's Chickamauga. Travelers. A horror show with heroes aplenty. War chews up the best of us, but remembering keeps their spirits kicking. As you head back to your time, take their stories with you. Let them remind you what conflict costs and why peace is worth fighting for. History's a tapestry of lives like theirs. Honor it. Thanks for tagging along with old General Bones. Now, With no flesh to fuss over, I'll rattle off into the sunset. Stay safe and mind the veil. And remember, you are the hero in this story.